everybody! Welcome to our usual monthly mental health video. And so today's video is actually really interesting. It's going to be about parenting. So all those parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents that I have on Facebook and on YouTube, this is the video for you. Today's video is actually coming from a parent who reached out to me and was really in a bad place and they wanted assistance, and I said, you know what, instead of me just talking to you, I will put a video together. And so since it's the end of the month, basically, I decided that today's video is going to be about this person's actual case. So without giving away information, as a psychologist, as a therapist, I would never give identifying information. So I'm going to try and make it general while still highlighting some of the concerns. So this was a case that came to me from a parent, a young lady, and she's a single mother. She has had, her child is it's a young child between the ages of 5 and 10. And so she asked for my help because she has been sick for a really long time. The father is non-existent, doesn't pay much attention, not involved in the child, does not live with the child. There is a grandparent, I believe, that is a part of the child's life and lives in the home space. And so the mother was sick for a really long time, and the child has seen the mother go through a lot of the doctor appointments and coming home with needles, in their arm, and having tubes and all these kind of really serious medical things. So the child has been exposed to this for several years. And so what she found was the child was having some issues, and she was concerned about the child being exposed and seeing her, being very ill and so on. So she sent the child to a psychologist to speak with someone in the country, and the child, as a result, saw the therapist for about a few sessions and then came home, and she said the behavior got worse. There were worse tantrums. They were saying things like the child hates the mother now and she hopes she dies. So this was very distressing for this parent. And so she was saying that how the child now has tons of tantrums and is super withdrawn, and as well as when the mother asks the child, why did you react like that? They can't really explain why. So that would suggest to me that there's something happening that definitely needs addressing. So I'm going to address the first half. There's two things I'm going to address tonight, one of which is how to address sickness in the family with a young child or young children, and then I'm going to address things like the tantrums and so on, which hopefully it'll make sense how to deal with the tantrums. So the first thing you want to do as a parent with an illness, with a young child, is talk to them. Explain to them, mommy's not well, mommy's got to go to the doctor. You want to communicate that what's happening. We're going to go to the doctor today and they're going to take some blood. So you're going to see the blood come out of the arms. Don't be scared. Mommy's brave and mommy wants you to be brave too. So you want to be a role model for the child, and you want to be a role model for the child's emotions, because children can't regulate their emotions the way we can, because again, they haven't developed the kind of brains that we have as adults, whereby we can say, okay, I'm seeing something, I'm upset, and I'm acting upset. Children are instinctive, so something upsets them and they react, right? They don't know how to rationalize someone saying something or something happening and making sense and saying, okay, well, maybe mommy didn't mean to do that, maybe daddy didn't mean to do that. So that's the first thing. You want to be able to communicate with the child. You want to be able to explain. We're going to go and do a CAT scan today. You want to explain what a CAT scan is. And you also want to fantasize the the things, the tests and stuff. So if your child is really young, you're going to be like, oh, a blood fairy, a little fairy is going to come and take my blood, and it's going to go to like, a blood queen or whatever. You want to make it fun. You want them to be comfortable with something that is going to be scary for them. You want to tell them, like, if you have to go and do a CAT scan, or in the tunnel, you say, mommy's going to go in the tunnel, and you show them that you're going to look at this monitor and you're going to see mommy's heart. If you have to do if you're going to be hooked up on a machine, you want them to be like, oh, mommy's okay. Like, listen to mommy's heart. You see that little moving line? That's mommy's heart, and that's how big mommy's heart is, and that's how much mommy loves you. So you want to make it pleasant, as pleasant for them as possible. Even if you're in pain, as a child gets older, you can explain, mommy can't run today, mommy has, some pain. And you always want to be straight up with them, but don't give them more than they can handle. If your child is 3 and 4 and 5, you make it a fantasy. If your child is 9 and 10 and 12, you want to explain to them, these are the tests that mommy needs to do so she can get better. These are the tests that mommy has to do so we can find out what's going on with her arm, with her heart, with her stomach. And you want to explain, because these children are big enough now, 12 and 13, right, in common entrance, they've done the body. They know how the body works and that kind of thing. So that's first thing. Communication is key to understanding and helping your child understand a very scary thing, especially if y'all like hooked up in the nose and oxygen and all the machines. Even grown people. I had a client who was like, they had to go and see their grandmother, and she was ill with cancer, and she came to me and she's like, I don't know how I'm going to handle seeing my grandmother hooked up to the machines. And we sat down, we went through scenarios, went through coping mechanisms, and we did like some mock discussions and some techniques to help prepare her mentally for seeing her grandmother. 2, talk about feelings. Now, this is something that we really don't do even as grown-ups, but if you have a child that doesn't understand what's going on with you, you want to be able to talk about your feelings. Now, because the child is having these tantrums, and because the child is saying things like, I hate you and I want you to die, you really want to know where this is coming from. You really want to be like, why would you say that to mommy? Like, why are you thinking this? Like, who told you that? Because let me tell you something. Your child can talk to a lot of people. They can talk to a professional. They can talk to a doctor. They can talk to their grandparents. And a lot of stuff gets put into their head, and they just react. They just project. Sometimes children get so scared that mommy will die, and so they don't want to see mommy suffer anymore. So they're like, all right, just die, like really insensitive things, but it's because they can't make sense of it. Yes, it's scary to see mommy sick, but if mommy's in so much pain, then maybe mommy should die. And that's a scary thing for them to think, and a scary thing for them to say. But if they understand what's going on, maybe they can make a little bit more sense of it. So you want to be able to talk about your feelings. You want to, when they're having the tantrum, you comfort them. Comfort them, yes, the screaming and so on. That's different. These children are not having tantrums because they're not getting their way. They're having tantrums because they don't understand what's happening to mommy or daddy. And so you want to be able to comfort them. You want to be able to talk to them. How are you feeling? Is there butterflies in your stomach? Does your head hurt? Because a lot of times children will have a lot of psychosomatic things happening and they react, right? And so sometimes children don't know how to explain how they're feeling. So a lot of times when we do therapy with children and we do, family therapy, we use a lot of activities. So an activity that you can do, is make, like, for example, this is what I was coming up with when I was coming on tonight. You make like 2 charts and you do emojis. So sad, happy, scared, worried, excited, something like that, right? And you laminate it and you make 2. One is mommy's day and one is the daughter's day, right? And so mommy will come home and she'll put like a little tick on mommy's feeling sick today. okay? And then the daughter will go and she'll tick it off and she'll be like, okay, I had a good day at work, at class today, at school today. So that way you're gauging, because children don't always know how to verbalize things. They don't know how to tell you, I'm scared for you, mommy, right? They don't know how to say that sometimes. So you have to kind of meet them at their level. Sometimes in the evening, like when you're sitting down with your child, if you're gonna have dinner or whatever, you can put out like even colored markers or colored popsicle sticks. You can make like a little sign that's like happy, sad, scared, worried, excited kind of thing. And the child can like make it like a game, like, how did you feel when mommy had to go to the doctor today? And they put up a sad sign. Especially if they're not talking, if a child is getting so withdrawn that they're not talking, you want to use these little like flashcards and sticks and markers, and the colors, different colors. So like you want to use a red marker for angry, blue marker for happy. And so that way your child can tell you without verbalizing how their day was. How do they feel? How are you feeling tonight? Yeah, I'm good. I'm feeling that kind of thing. So you want to be able to help them. Even things like charts, color codes. You can use Play-Doh. You can have your child, like if your child again is not using a lot of words and they're really small, you can say like, draw a little, show mommy how you feel with this Play-Doh. And you'll see them like maybe they'll hit the Play-Doh and they're angry, and you could say, why are you hitting the Play-Doh? And then they'll be like, angry. Okay, why are you angry? And you want to always tell people, meet children at their level. Get down to that chair, sit on the floor with them. Don't talk over them. Don't talk down to them. You want to be able to make eye contact. See what they're doing. See what they're feeling, because you know your child. So if your child's behavior has changed severely, it should be a wake-up call. Like, something's happening with my child. They're not understanding what's happening to me. Somebody else's influence in them, or maybe I need to do a little bit more talking and I need to explain a little bit more to them, or I need to not be as blunt, because sometimes parents are too blunt and then the child gets really scared. 3, don't make promises you can't keep. Like, don't say like, mommy will come to your dance recital when mommy has tubes, like she's stuck up to a bed. Don't make promises that, like, you don't want to tell the child that you're dying. You don't want to tell the child that, like, mommy's not going to be around. Maybe, again, depending on the child, depending on the age, you can have that discussion. And you don't want to do it prematurely. Like, you don't want to do, like, you're going to die, but you're not going to die for another 5 years kind of thing. So, like, you have to be able to gauge where your child is at and how you approach things like sickness and death as well. So, being aware of keeping promises and not breaking them, because then the child can get angry, and that's also what happens. You try to comfort the child, you try to make the child understand, and then you make a promise and you break it and you take 2 steps back, because then the child's like, you promised you'd be there, why are you sick, maybe you should just die. And that's how the child has these tantrums and says these mean things, because they don't understand why you can't make it to that class, you can't make it to that party. Okay, so keep the routine. Now, this can be really hard when you're a single parent and you're the only person taking care of this child, but definitely seeking help from, like siblings or aunts or uncles during this time is really important. So keeping the routine. You want your child to still go to bed at the time that they always go to bed at. You want them to go to school and come home from school the same times you would have done that. If you change the schedule to accommodate like hospital visits, you want to tell them in advance. Okay, baby, I've got to go see Dr. Funny Face or Funny Mustache, and you're going to be by Auntie so-and-so today, okay? And you say that like the night ahead. And, you let them know like, Auntie so-and-so will have an activity for you today. Or sometimes you don't even have to say where you're going. If you find the child has a lot of anxiety about you going to the doctor, and like every time you go to the doctor they have a tantrum, maybe not telling them you're going to the doctor all the time is good for them. Just say Auntie so-and-so wants to see you today and she wants to take you to a party, and you get the family involved in that way, and you still keep the routines. So if you're gonna ask your sister or your uncle or a grandparent to take care of the child, you want it to be consistent. Every Wednesday the grandparent will come to the house and take care, or you take the child to the grandparent, kind of thing. If you have like a special thing where, you know, people do like meatless Mondays or taco Tuesdays, you want to keep those things. You want to make it manageable though. Like if you're really in pain, then you really want to get help from your family or friends, and you make it consistent. Like you want to be able to still have quality time with your child while still not over promising, because if you break the promise, it's, you know, like I said, 2 steps back. But you still want to keep a routine. You don't want to drop everything. If the child goes swimming on Saturdays, you find someone to take the child to swimming on Saturdays, because that is something the child looks forward to. It's something that the child is used to, and it's very difficult for children sometimes to break their habits, and that's when you see the tantrums coming back out. And let me tell you something, children, if you don't get a child in a routine early o'clock, it's a problem, because they will not, it's very hard to put them back into like a box after you've let them stay up till 10 o'clock at night and all kind of things, right? So getting a child a routine is really important. I also suggest for those parents who are like, yeah, Rise, or whatever, you don't know, but for those who have younger children, 6 months old, 9 months old, once that child develops their sleeping pattern, make a big chart. Go get some paper, get some cardboard, and make a big chart, and you say like Sunny's bedtime routine, and you mark it out like 7:30, you know, television off, you know, 7:45, brush teeth and shower, 8 p.m., you know, story time. People, get your quality time with your children. Story time is very important. Reading with your children is essential to their mind, their development of their brain and their body, and a sense of emotional stability. Reading with your children, tucking them in at night, and I know this is very hard for single parents, and I know this is very hard for people with graveyard shift, but if you are a parent and you're at home with your child and you work a 9 to 5, then you really should be able to do this with them, and you do and so they know TV time is off. Oh, I have to go and brush my teeth and bathe. And they know, and the bath helps them relax and so on. So they know after bed comes reading. So now I get to read with mommy. And then you know that it's always going to be, you know, people say like sometimes they might read a book, do a lullaby and a song, like something like that. Like with my clients, sometimes I do put their children to bed, and I would read 2 stories, I have a book that's a bunch of rhymes. And so I do a bunch of rhymes with them to help them go to sleep, and then I sing them a really, really slow, mellow, super sleepy song, even if it's just like words, just making up words, but you keep a really low, gentle mellow, and they go right off, and they're sucking their thumb, they go right off. I was amazed. I couldn't believe that it actually works, but it works. But you have to make that routine, and it's a routine that they can see on the board. Especially if they're 6 and 7 and can read, better put that routine on the board in front of them, in their, like, in a common space. So, or like in like somewhere where a kitchen kind of thing, where they can be like, okay, we had dinner, we watched television, time to go bathe, get ready and shower, story time, bedtime, light off, door ajar kind of thing. Thank you, Latry. But yeah, so that is, and just an incentive. Children work well on incentive and rewards, positive rewards, positive incentives. So if you find your child is having a little hard time, you put another little column, and it's like rewards for following through, and you explain to them, every time you go to bed at the right time, I'm going to put a star, and you put that star. Go and buy a packet of plain stars, and you put the stars up, and you tell them, after, if you get a star every day of the week, you'll get a treat at the end of the week, kind of thing. On Sunday, you go for an extra long walk, you go for ice cream, you go for a drive on the seawall. Not monetary. Try not to do things with children that are monetary. Do things that with children that they'll remember. So quality time. So you still get quality time, but the incentive is there. All right, does that make sense? Let me move on to the next one. Give children tasks. Now, you're keeping the routine, you're spending quality time, you're dealing with their anxiety and their feelings and so on. Now, in therapy, in DBT, with dialectic behavioral therapy, there's something called distraction. So when dealing with extremely high-risk behaviors, things like suicide and so on, and anxiety, they say that it's not just coping mechanisms that helps, but distracting mechanisms that work as well. So while your child, instead of having them there sitting about all the things that they're worrying about, because they are children like that, that have very high emotional states, so you would give them like, okay, a task for today is helping mommy bottle her medication. Mommy needs to take these pills so that she can do a really good job at work today. And then you would say things like, you want them, singing. If you have a grandparent that's sick or something, you go to visit them at the hospital. A task would be like, okay, today we're gonna sing Nana's song, that kind of thing. Also, if it is that you're, like, for example, you're going to do chemotherapy, you have to do chemotherapy like every week, or you have dialysis every week, you want your child to, like, let's write grandpa, let's write auntie so-and-so a good luck sticker. And you buy a little pack of stickies, and they can write or draw or little hearts, and you have them go and, leave a sticky for auntie so-and-so, or you go and let them leave a sticky for mommy. And so it becomes a task. So they feel a part of the process. They don't just feel like they're being talked to, but they feel like, okay, I helped mommy do her meds today. I helped auntie so-and-so feel better. I sang a song for grandma. And so that way they are able to feel a part of the process and not just being told bad news all the time, but they're a part of making the person feel better. They're a part of helping the sick person feel better, and thus they feel better about themselves, instead of just being like, I only hear good news when I have to hear about why this person's, I only hear bad news when I have to hear about why this person's sick, right? Okay, so tasks, very important. Little tasks. I used to do that with my father, and I was like 26. I used to like separate his medication. I felt really accomplished actually helping my father go through all his medication when he was really sick, because it just made me feel like I was contributing to his well-being, and it made me feel like me helping him made him feel less stressed about all the medication he had to take. So I would go through the list and I would portion it out, and then I'd give it to him. So, he trusted me. So yeah. But yeah, so those are the things: quality time, giving children tasks, keeping a routine, don't make promises you can't keep, talk about feelings and anxieties and doing those activities, and communicating, but not too much communicating, not too much oversharing. Yeah. Last but not least, of course, and I said this earlier, looking for change in behavior. Now, this is going into what I was going to talk about, the tantrums and so on. Now, rightfully so, a parent will want to know, why is the child being so aggressive? Why is the child changing? Why is the child not speaking as much? And I think I've covered how to deal with an aggressive child and a withdrawn child. And so in this case, like, I would tell the parent to try some of the things I talked about tonight and come back to me and see if anything worked. And if anything worked or didn't work, I'll just help follow up with that. But if you find, like, I think the person just was really concerned about why the child wasn't recalling what they did, because the child would be quite average, happy, normal, bouncy, and so on. I hate the word normal. Bouncy, joyful, and then have these tantrums. And I think a lot of times children just don't know how to verbalize and explain themselves, and that's why the task, and like I would tell anybody, Google like activities to help calm a child, and you could like look at images and there's charts. Activities to deal with emotionally charged children. Activities, children activities. There's in Pinterest, there's just everything, and you can click on like psychology, you can click on like therapy, and these activity charts and stuff, you print them off and you can do them together. And so really, a lot of times when children react that way, it's because they're just really under a lot of they're confused, they're under a lot of pressure, and so on. So the more you can get your child to either verbalize or explain what they're feeling, then you can help them cope. And I think a lot of the things I spoke about earlier will help the child to cope, help the child to understand a little bit better, and also to help the child see the positive side of the situation, because it's really hard to find a positive when the one caretaker is really sick. But it really does have to do with keeping all the things I talked about in check. Now, I don't want this video to go too long, because then it's too much for people to listen to. But parents, let me know if these things work. Let me know if the charts work. Let me know if the routine worked. I will adapt to what you guys say, because you guys are the ones who are making it practical. I have some comments here. Lakshmi, I have an aggressive 12-year-old to deal with every day. Now, Lakshmi, again, like I said, having a conversation. Why is she aggressive? Like, children should not be aggressive. In therapy, we say that, in psychology in general, human behavior, we look at two things. Two things are directly intertwined and directly affect each other. When you're angry and you've been exposed to anger and violence or any kind of trauma as a child, and you push that down, a lot of times it bubbles up as depression. And so maybe she may not be depressed now, but she might be depressed. She may have depressive episodes, or she might have, long bouts of like sadness and confusion and aggression. Now, the other side of the coin is that a lot of times when we are sad on the inside, it comes out forcefully as anger. I think there used to be a saying, and I can't remember, and I really need to remember it, which is like, anger pushed down is depression, and depression pushed down is homicide. It's a terrible saying, but that's what it is. A lot of times, like when you look at those shooters, the mass shooters in Florida, those persons were truly distressed, emotionally distressed. They were bullied. Oh God, my camera's moving. They were bullied. They were depressed. They had their own mental health issues, and it came out as aggression, because a lot of times persons who are victims of violence become perpetrators of violence, because in their own way they're trying to regain power that was taken from them. So someone took it from them. A parent took the power away from them, and now they want to take the power away from other people. And so, yes, there are many times that victims become perpetrators themselves. And there are many times that children who are sad or struggling silently will act out. They will have tantrums, because that's the only way they really know how to express themselves. They only really know how to get a reaction from their parent that way. And especially in the Caribbean, you see a lot of children do this. Children get in trouble because that's the time that they're sometimes going to see their parent. Sometimes you go days without really having a proper conversation with your parent. But if you go and jump a fence and rip your pants, clothing, or your uniform, or dirty up your uniform, that's when you can get some lecture, some attention from your parent. So like I tell people, routine, quality time, and communicate. If you want to be able to have a consistent relationship with your child, your family, your partner, you have to have those key things. And yes, it can be really scary. Like children who are 12, or even like a little child having a tantrum and it becomes rageful. Is that even a word? But it becomes really scary. And so you have to be able that when they calm down, you go to them and you say, what is happening? You weren't. Why are you so angry? Like, why are you so upset? Did something happen? Did someone do something to you? I remember my mom used to always say that to me. When I'd have a tantrum and a big breakdown and catastrophize, my mom would always come and be like, did something happen? Did someone trouble you? And that's when sometimes you find out that children are being bullied. That's sometimes how people have found out that their children were being molested. It's really scary that our children would hold things from us for several years, and we would have no clue because we were either unaware, too scared to ask, or didn't know how to ask. So I think, and I hope I answered this person's question. I hope I gave everybody some techniques that you can take away tonight and start fresh with your child on this lovely Easter weekend that we have coming up. Congratulations to all the children who wrote grade 6 assessment, including my nephew, and I hope that all the stress that led up to these 2 days was not too much for everybody, and I hope that everybody comes out on top and where they want to be and get the schools that they want. And remember, listen back to this video. If you're confused, message me, Facebook me, DM me, and have a great night. And I hope I was able to shed some light on some of the confusing things that children do, and certainly some of the confusing emotional turmoil that they go through. Okay, bye-bye everybody. Thank you.